أجواء إيجابية إن شاء الله.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. A cooking gas cylinder explodes at Roadster Diner's kitchen in Antlias. At least 26 people are injured. Labor Minister Sajan Aziz says an initiative proposed by future leader Saad Hariri has reached a standstill, highlighting any presidential candidate must garner collective approval to reach the post. Russia, the United States, and the United Nations are set to hold three-way talks on the Syrian crisis in Geneva. At least 26 people were injured when a cooking gas cylinder exploded at a restaurant kitchen in Antlias, north of Beirut. The Lebanese Red Cross wrote in a tweet that 8 teams headed to evacuate the casualties from the midday explosion at Roadster Diner. The kitchen manager, his hand bandaged, said the cause of the blast is yet to be determined. The force of the blast knocked over several motorcycles parked outside the building. Security forces cordoned off the scene of the site with yellow tape. Labor Minister Sajan Aziz says an initiative proposed by future leader MP Saad Hariri has reached a standstill, highlighting any presidential candidate must garner collective approval to reach the post. The Kitab official was addressing reporters after meeting with Lebanese Forces Chief Samir Jaja at the latter's residence in Ma'rab, saying any president should be consensual and not a division factor between the political powers. He pointed out that there are several obstacles facing Hariri's initiative, saying it was put on hold. Aziz, however, emphasized that efforts to resolve the presidential crisis should not be halted, as the country cannot remain without a president any longer. He reiterated that the Kataib party was seeking the election of a president who respects the constitution, believes in Lebanon's sovereignty, the endorsement of a fair electoral law, and the unity of its army. Future Bloc MP Hadi Hbeish has met with Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun in a first meeting between the officials of the two parties, after the Future Movement had reportedly endorsed the presidential candidacy of MP Sleiman Frangieh. Following the talks in Aoun's residence in Rabie, Hbeish said they tackled various topics. Dialogue with Aoun is always useful, he said, underlining that communication channels are open. Future Movement Chief Saad Hariri is believed to be seeking a deal whereby Marada Movement leader MP Sleiman Frangieh becomes president in exchange for his return to the premiership. The initiative gained support from several influential sides, but has been met by staunch opposition from the 3 main Christian parties, including Aoun's FPM. At least 50 people were killed and 80 were wounded in a triple truck bomb attack carried out by ISIS in northeastern Syria. The town in the northeastern province of Hasakeh is controlled by the Kurdish YPG militia, which has been battling ISIS with the support of US-led airstrikes. Kurdish fighters have advanced in the last few weeks against ISIS in Hasakeh province, notably with the takeover of the town of Hol by a US-backed rebel alliance, which includes the YPG. The 3 blasts carried out by at least 2 suicide bombers hit outside a hospital, at a market, and in a residential area in the town of Tel Tamir late last night. Russia, the United States, and the United Nations are set to hold three-way talks on the Syrian crisis in Geneva. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Ann Patterson, the top U.S. diplomat for the Middle East, will represent Washington at the meeting. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gatilov said Russia will be calling for the intensification of joint efforts in the fight against terrorism. The talks mark the latest step in the so-called Vienna process that began in the late October, when 17 countries, including the UN and EU representatives, met to discuss a political solution to end the fighting between President Bashar al-Assad and the opposition. The next meeting between top diplomats in the Vienna process is expected to take place this month in New York. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered his forces in Syria to take tough action against any threats, speaking 2 weeks after Turkey shot down a Russian warplane in the war-torn country. Addressing a defense meeting in televised remarks, he said any targets threatening the Russian grouping or our land infrastructure should be immediately destroyed. Putin also said Russia supported the opposition Free Syrian Army, providing it with air support, arms and ammunition in joint operations with Syrian troops against extremist militants. His statement appeared to be the first time Moscow said it was actually supporting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's opponents in the fight against ISIS forces. And coming up next, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump defends his call to ban Muslims from the United States. More details after the break. Welcome back. You're watching the English newscast. After months of promises and weeks of preparation, the first Canadian government plane load of Syrian refugees has finally landed in Toronto aboard a military aircraft met by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Trudeau was elected to a surprise majority in October, promising to accept more refugees more quickly than the previous Conservative government. The plane carrying 163 Syrian refugees will be followed by a second military aircraft to Montreal on Saturday. Trudeau said 10,000 will be resettled by the end of the year and a further 15,000 by the end of February. As Trudeau met the military aircraft amid tight security at a special terminal, privately sponsored Syrian refugees were arriving on commercial flights at Toronto's main terminal, greeted by sponsors and ordinary Canadians who had come to the airport to welcome the much-anticipated newcomers.
This is a wonderful night where we get to show not just a plane load of new Canadians what Canada's all about, but we get to show the world how to open our hearts and welcome in people who are fleeing extraordinarily difficult situations. But it's not just about receiving them tonight. It's about the hard work we're all going to do in the coming weeks, months, and indeed years to ensure that everyone who passes through here tonight and in the weeks and months to come are able to build a life for themselves, for their family, and also contribute fully to the continued growth of this extraordinary country. Tonight they step off the plane as refugees, but they walk out of this terminal as permanent residents of Canada with social insurance numbers, with health cards, and with an opportunity to become full Canadians. Now, this is something that we are able to do in this country because we define a Canadian not by a skin color or a language or a religion or a background, but by a shared set of values, aspirations, hopes and dreams that not just Canadians but people around the world share. And how you will receive these people tonight will be something they will remember for the rest of their lives, but also, I know, something that you will remember for the rest of your lives. And I thank you deeply for being a part of this, because this matters. Tonight matters, not just for Canada, but for the world. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. Thank you.
Meanwhile, in the U.S., Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has defended his call to temporarily ban Muslims from entering the United States and pledged to punish police killers with death if elected president. Trump made the comments to a crowd of law enforcement officers from Massachusetts and New Hampshire in the Granite State city of Portsmouth.
When I said illegal immigration, all of a sudden people started thinking. And 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it was really a nice conversation. When I talked about what I said the other day, all of a sudden, I'm watching the shows this morning, and I'm watching the shows tonight. Well, you know, Trump has a point. The visa system is not working. This woman came in on a marriage visa, and she was totally radicalized. And she came in, and all of a sudden they're saying, it's not working, the visa system. And then another show was talking about something else, not working. We're going to get down to brass tacks. You look at what happened. So many people knew that those two in California were up to no good. They saw bombs sitting on the floor. They had one guy who bought the guns. They had another person that said, oh, I didn't want to report them because I didn't want to go racial profiling. Oh, okay. Seized pipe bombs sitting all over the place, didn't want to racially profile. I mean, how stupid do they think we are? One of the first things I do in terms of executive order, if I win, will be to sign a strong, strong statement that will go out to the country, out to the world, that anybody killing a policeman, policewoman, police officer, anybody killing a police officer, death penalty. It's going to happen, okay? Can't go. We can't let this go. We can't let this go.
Thai police say they are considering a defamation case against a police officer who fled to Australia and is claiming political asylum. Police Major General Pawin Ponsirin was the most senior police official entrusted with the investigation into human trafficking after mass graves were discovered in southern Thailand in May. Only weeks before human trafficking trial was due to begin in Thailand, Pawin said his investigation had implicated senior military and police officials in the racket. He told Australian media that he now fears for his life. North and South Korea have held high-level talks at a North Korean border town aiming to ease tensions and improve ties that degenerated after a military standoff in August. Wang Boo-gi, South Korea's vice unification minister and the head negotiator, met his North Korean counterpart at the jointly run industrial park just over the border in the North Kaesong city. South Korean officials want to discuss more reunions in the border town of Panmunjom between aging family members separated by the 1950-1953 Korean War. Today's talks arise from an exchange of artillery fire across the militarized zone in August, which prompted a prolonged session of high-level talks between the two rivals. And back in Europe, MPs of the Verkhovna Rada in Kiev have launched a brawl during a speech by Ukraine's Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk. The PM later said there were a lot of morons, so he would not comment on the incident. The fight began between MPs from the President Petro Poroshenko's bloc, known as PPB, and Yatsenyuk's People's Front. It allegedly all started when Oleg Barna of the PPB went up to the tribune while Yatsenyuk was giving a speech, presented him with a bouquet of roses, and then tried to carry him off the stage. Check it out. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. The cooking gas cylinder explodes at Roadster Diner's kitchen in Antilles. At least 26 people are injured. Labor Minister Sejan Aziz says an initiative proposed by future leader Empissat Hariri has reached a standstill, highlighting any presidential candidate must garner collective approval to reach the post. And Russia, the United States and the UN are set to hold three-way talks on the Syrian crisis in Geneva. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Tamina. Thank you all for watching.
الأجواء إيجابية إن شاء الله.